I am 88 years old as I say this. My voice is slower now, not because I have nothing left to say, but because I finally understand what matters enough to say carefully. There are moments late in life when the noise fades, not all at once, just enough for the truth to step forward. This is one of those moments. If you are listening, I want you to know something first. I am not here to teach you. I am here to confess. I have spent 40 years chasing the wrong things, and it took me almost my entire life to realize it. I am speaking to you directly because I remember what it feels like to be where you might be now. Busy, certain, convinced that you still have time to fix things later. I thought the same. When you were young, life feels wide. Mistakes feel temporary. Regrets feel like problems for an older version of yourself, someone you barely believe will ever exist. I believed that too. For most of my life, I lived inside a quiet lie, not a dramatic one, not something anyone warned me about. A polite lie, a respectable lie, the kind that looks like ambition. The lie was simple, that if I kept reaching, someday I would arrive, that fulfillment was a destination, that meaning would come after success, after recognition, after security. I did not know I was building my life around something hollow. By the time I understood, decades were already gone. I am not speaking from theory. I am speaking from years. 88 years of waking up to the same face in the mirror, of watching friends disappear one by one, of holding memories that no longer have witnesses. I have seen what lasts and what does not. I grew up in a small, quiet home where very little was said out loud. My parents were not unkind. They were simply tired. They worked hard. They worried often. And they believed deeply in one thing: survival. In our house, love was shown through responsibility, through sacrifice, through silence. No one sat me down to explain life. Life was something you endured, then improved. From an early age, I learned that value came from usefulness, from being dependable, from not causing trouble. Praise was rare, but achievement was noticed. So I learned to achieve. At school, I watched how attention moved. It followed the capable, the impressive, the ones who stood out. I noticed that people listened more closely when you had something to show for yourself. And quietly, without anyone ever saying it directly, a belief formed inside me. If I became enough, I would finally feel enough. That belief stayed with me longer than any relationship. It shaped every major decision I made. I studied not because I loved learning, but because I loved approval. I worked not because I felt called, but because I felt afraid of being ordinary. I measured my worth by progress, by income, by how difficult it was to replace me. I told myself I was being responsible, practical, focused. And for a long time, the world rewarded me for it. Each small success felt like proof. Each sacrifice felt justified. Each delay of joy felt temporary. I said things like, later, after this phase, when things settle down. I truly believed that life would slow down and wait for me. What I did not realize was that life does not wait. It only moves quietly while you are busy. Years passed without my noticing their weight. I missed moments without calling them losses. I postponed conversations, assuming they could always happen another day. I believed that the people who loved me would always be there when I was finally ready to be present. I did not think I was choosing wrong things. I thought I was choosing important ones. That is the danger. The wrong things rarely announce themselves as wrong. They arrive dressed as priorities, as responsibilities, as sensible decisions. They promise safety. They promise respect. They promise that one day you will finally feel at peace. I chased that promise for 40 years, and it kept moving. There is a strange moment that comes in old age, a moment when effort no longer hides the truth. Your body slows, your calendar empties, and the distractions that once protected you from reflection fall away. That's when the questions become louder. Not questions about what you achieved, but about what you felt, what you shared, what you ignored. I began to notice something unsettling. The memories that warmed me were not the ones I worked so hard for. They were small, unplanned, often inconvenient at the time. A quiet conversation, a laugh I almost rushed past, a moment of connection I nearly skipped because I was busy. Those were the moments that stayed. And suddenly the scale tipped. The things I had sacrificed for success did not come back to comfort me, but the things I had neglected, they returned as silence. This realization did not arrive as regret all at once. It arrived as a slow ache, an understanding that the life I had built was impressive, but thin, structured, but missing something essential. I am not finished telling this story. There are truths that took me even longer to face. Truths about love, about time, about what we mistake for purpose. But before I go there, I needed you to understand where this began. It began with a belief learned quietly, a belief that many people still live inside, that worth is earned, that presence can wait, that meaning is something you arrive at later. I believed that for 40 years, and this is only the beginning of what that belief cost me. There is a moment I remember very clearly, not because it was dramatic, but because nothing happened. I was sitting alone one evening, years ago, long before my body began to fail me. The house was quiet, not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. I had finished another long day of work that no longer excited me, the kind of work I once believed would define me. I remember realizing with surprising calm that no one was waiting to hear how my day went, not because people didn't care, but because I had trained them not to expect my presence. I had been there physically for decades, yet emotionally postponed. That night, something shifted, not enough to change my life immediately, but enough to make the questions start.
I began to notice how often I spoke about the past or the future, and how rarely about the present. How often I described myself by what I did rather than how I lived. How easily I justified absence by calling it sacrifice. I had convinced myself that I was doing everything for others. But slowly, painfully, I saw the truth. I was also running from something. I was running from stillness, from vulnerability, from the risk of being fully known. Chasing achievement gave me structure. It gave me rules. It gave me a clear way to measure progress. Relationships do not offer that comfort. They require attention without guarantees. They demand time without proof of return. So I postponed them. I told myself I would be more present when I felt secure enough, when I felt successful enough, when I felt finished. That feeling never came. What did come were signs I ignored. A partner who stopped asking questions, children who learned not to interrupt, friends who slowly stopped calling first. Not out of anger, out of adaptation. People adjust to the space you give them. I see now that many of my proudest moments were also moments of quiet loss. Promotions that came with longer absences. Milestones celebrated quickly, then left behind. I remember standing in rooms full of applause and feeling strangely detached, as if I were watching my life happen to someone else. At the time, I thought this meant I needed to aim higher, that fulfillment was still ahead. It never occurred to me that I was already passing it. Years later, when time began to press back, I tried to correct course quickly, too quickly. I started saying yes to conversations I had avoided. I tried to slow my pace without understanding how. I attempted to compress presence into what little time remained. But life does not respond well to panic. Some doors do not reopen just because you finally knock. This is one of the hardest truths I had to accept. Not everything waits. Forgiveness can be granted late. Understanding can grow late. But shared time cannot be recreated. Moments require their moment. I do not share this to create fear. Fear fades. I share it to create clarity. The cost of chasing the wrong things is not failure. It is absence. You do not feel it at first. You feel productive, necessary, admired perhaps. The emptiness shows up later, when applause has quieted and schedules have thinned. When you finally sit still long enough to listen. I sit still now. And in that stillness, I see how many times I chose what looked important over what felt alive. I chose plans over presence, certainty over connection, becoming someone over being with someone. I believed I was building a future, but I was often postponing the present. There is a quiet cruelty in that mistake, not intentional, but deeply consequential, because the present is the only place life ever actually happens. I know now that meaning is not something you accumulate, it is something you participate in. I also know how difficult that is to hear when you are still in motion, when the world praises your speed, when your identity feels tied to your output. I once believed rest was something you earned. Love was something you deserved after proving yourself. Peace was a reward. None of that is true. They are foundations, not prizes. I learned this too late to change everything, but not too late to speak honestly. There are things I wish I had said earlier. Apologies I rehearsed silently for years. Gratitude I assumed was obvious. I discovered that silence, even when unintentional, is a message, and the message I sent again and again was later. Later became never more often than I like to admit. If you are listening and feel slightly uncomfortable, that is understandable. Truth often arrives that way. It does not accuse, it simply stands there, waiting to be acknowledged. I am not asking you to abandon ambition. I am asking you to examine what it is costing you. What moments are you postponing because they do not feel productive? What conversations feel inconvenient right now? Who is adapting to your absence? These are not questions I asked myself until it was quiet enough that they could not be avoided. In the final part of this confession, I want to tell you what I understand now about time, about love, about what remains when striving ends. Not advice, just truth, earned slowly. If you choose to continue listening, I will finish this story honestly and gently. At 88, time feels different. Not shorter, more honest. When you are young, time feels like something you spend. When you are old, you realize time is something that passes through you, whether you are ready or not. I used to think I understood time because I managed it well. Schedules, deadlines, plans stretching years ahead. Now I understand that I never really knew it at all. Time is not money. It does not grow when invested. It does not return interest. Time is closer to breath. Miss it, and it is gone. In the quiet of these last years, I have learned something painful but freeing. Life does not ask you what you intended. It only reflects what you practiced. I practiced urgency. I practiced postponement. I believed that what mattered could wait. And so my life learned to move without me at its center. Love, I have learned, is not proven by sacrifice alone. It is proven by presence. You can provide for people and still abandon them emotionally. You can be admired and still be absent. You can be remembered for what you built and forgotten for how you made people feel. I wish someone had told me that love does not need grand gestures. It needs attention. Attention is the rarest form of generosity and the most costly for ambitious people, because attention cannot be delayed. It must be given now. I also understand something else now. The voice that told me to keep striving was not evil. It was afraid. Afraid of being insignificant. Afraid of slowing down and facing emptiness. Afraid that if I stopped moving, I would have to feel. So I kept moving. But meaning does not live at the finish line. It lives in the middle of things. In conversations that wander. In moments that do not advance anything except closeness. If I could speak to my younger self, I would not tell him to work less. I would tell him to notice more. Notice who laughs easily around you. Notice who grows quiet when you enter the room. Notice which moments feel alive, even if they seem unimportant. Those moments are not distractions. They are the substance. I am often asked if I regret my life. That's a complicated question. I am grateful for what I built. I respect the effort it took, but I grieve what it cost. Regret is not loud. It is subtle. It sounds like remembering someone's voice and realizing you can't hear it again. It looks like empty space where a conversation should have been. It feels like understanding something perfectly, too late to use it fully. Yet even now, I do not believe it is useless to speak, because truth has a strange way of traveling. It reaches people at different times. If you are listening and still feel pulled forward by goals and plans, I understand. I lived there most of my life. Just don't make the same mistake I did. Don't believe that your real life begins after you become someone else. This is it. Not later. Not after things calm down. Not after you finally feel ready. Readiness is not required for presence. Only willingness. Sit with people a little longer than is efficient. Say the thing that feels awkward but honest. Let some days be unproductive and deeply human. At the end, what remains is surprisingly simple. Faces, voices, moments of being truly seen. I chased many things for 40 years, and I caught some of them, but the most important things were never running away. They were waiting quietly, hoping I would notice before it was too late. If you take anything from this confession, let it be this. Do not spend your life proving your worth. Spend it expressing your presence. That is the only thing time cannot take back, and that is the truth I finally understand at 88.